All right, hello. If you are new to blockchain development and don't know where to start, or if you've already developed on the Ethereum mainnet blockchain before and found it a little bit too expensive, then this video tutorial is here for you to help you deploy your very first Polygon smart contract. So we're going to walk through coding, deploying, and interacting with a smart contract on Polygon. And then we're going to use a couple of different tools. And I'll give you an overview of all the tools and what we're going to be doing in a second. But just so that you know, in case when you're watching the video in the future and you want to follow a written guide, right here, we have the Alchemy documentation hub. So this is docs.alchemy.com. This may change in the future, so in case it changes, just know that I will keep in the video description below in this video, I will keep a link there that's up to date. So in case that changes, you can find all of our docs and the guide for this tutorial in the description. So in here on our docs, you can see that we have a lot of documentation around some overall introduction, some enhanced APIs that Alchemy supports. These are really useful for when you're building specific use cases, NFT API, token API, all this stuff. The thing that we're looking for here is in the tutorial section right now, where it's called how to code and deploy a Polygon smart contract. So there's a step-by-step introductory tutorial that'll teach you how to build and interact with a smart contract, like I said earlier. So yeah, awesome. So everything is written in written form here. I'm just going through in a video. I'm going to walk you through everything so that it's more visual for people who are more of a visual learner. You can see me type out all the code and all the commands and set up all the accounts and everything. And so yeah, as we're going through this tutorial, I highly recommend 3 different ways to debug and get yourself unblocked if you run into any issues whatsoever. So the first way is to go on Ethereum Stack Exchange and look for questions that are tagged Polygon or Alchemy or both. And if questions don't exist there, then I highly recommend you making a question there, because this is a forum that's open to the entire internet. Everybody can help each other out, and you'll probably be able to get your question answered a lot faster and with very specific code snippets and things like that. So that's the number 1 method. Number 2, I would recommend you tweeting at us on Twitter. A lot of crypto is on Twitter these days, so it's super helpful to have a Twitter account. You can tweet at us at Alchemy Platform, or you can tweet to me directly at that guy in tech. And I'll put those links in the description below as well. But basically, we're always on Twitter. That's kind of where we're monitoring a lot of the discussion that's going on in crypto and blockchain and all of this stuff. So you can hit us up there. And then number 3, you can hit up the Alchemy Discord. So it's www.alchemy.com/discord. I'll also put a link of that in the description. But that is where we have our developer community. And I can actually show you real quick. We have our developer community. So I was just in the general channel, and you can see here people are chatting about various things here, including sharing their NFT projects, getting things debugged, talking about pricing plans, you name it. We have a lot of different topics here. So that would be the 3rd best place to get your questions answered. But because it's not, it's a closed system, it's not SEO'd, it's not like searchable on Google and all this stuff. It's not as helpful to other people. So I highly recommend going Ethereum Stack Exchange or Stack Overflow first, and then Twitter, which is also, open. And then of course, Discord is a great place too. So those are the 3 ways. Awesome. So with that out of the way, let's get into our development process. Basically, I'm gonna go through a couple of different tools, because this is something I wish I knew when I started developing, just like the architecture of how all these different new names of tools help. So if you're already, already know this stuff, you can just skip ahead to the next section. But for everybody else, we're going to go through 5 different tools here. So you can see we have Alchemy. So Alchemy, if you don't already know, you can click on this site, you can visit the website. It's basically, we're a blockchain developer platform. So we include, we build out a lot of APIs, dashboards, metrics. We provide your connection to talk to the blockchain. So every time you're issuing a transaction, or you want to mint an NFT or update a smart contract or send a token, all that stuff, you name it, you actually need a way to talk to the blockchain. So if you're using something like MetaMask, or if you're using, some other person's website, at some point, there's a connection to the blockchain that is created by a node. And so Alchemy provides this kind of a blockchain engine that provides that node access. So that's a little bit of high level stuff, but you'll see later how we use this account. The next thing is Hardhat. So Hardhat is an Ethereum development environment. This basically allows us to test and deploy and try out different blockchain development environments for Ethereum development. And Polygon is an EVM-based chain, and so that's why it counts as one of these Ethereum development environments. So the third thing is Ethers.js. This is a very nice JavaScript SDK. It's a library of functions that basically are a wrapper around the basic Ethereum API that's more low level. And so by having this in JavaScript, you can kind of use this in your Node.js server or in your React.js front end, you name it. So having it as JavaScript is like pretty flexible and versatile. So it's kind of nice to have that option. So that's Ethers. And then the fourth tool is Solidity. So if you've never written Solidity before, that's basically the programming language for Ethereum development. And so that compiles into EVM bytecode. But it is very similar syntactically to JavaScript. And you'll see a little bit of that later too. And then finally, the fifth thing is MetaMask. So MetaMask is a cryptocurrency wallet. It manages accounts and allows us to basically have an identity where we're going to deploy our smart contract to the Ethereum blockchain using Alchemy. So cool. Hopefully that was a good overview. So let's just get directly into the code. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is create our directory. So I like to keep everything inside my code directory. I call it CO. And so we're going to copy this. We're going to basically make dir Polygon smart contract tutorial. I already have that. So let's do -1. So you can name it whatever you want, but I'm going to name it mine Polygon smart contract tutorial -1, and then cd into Polygon smart contract tutorial -1. And then right now we're using NPM, so that's Node Package Manager. But if you don't already have Node Package Manager installed, then I recommend clicking on this link. Basically, Alchemy setup for Macs. If you have a Windows machine, you can also Google how to set up Node Package Manager. So how to install NVM and NPM. So I highly recommend going to NVM too, because NVM is basically the manager for different NPM versions or Node versions. And so this keeps your environment set up really clean, because over time, different projects might use different Node versions. So anyways, I'll put that in the description as well. So we're using NPM, and then we are going to initialize a project here. So npm init-yes. Awesome. And then you should see something like this. Basically, we just did the --yes because we didn't configure anything in there. That'll just get us going really fast, and it creates this package.json file. So I'm going to open VS Code. This is my shortcut that I've set up. This is just my code editor of choice, VS Code. You can use whatever you want. If you can use Vim or Sublime Text or, anything that you're used to. So this is just me opening up the package. And you can see here in my Polygon Smart Contract tutorial folder, I have this package.json, and it's just this base JSON. Cool. Hopefully everything's good so far. We're just getting started. All right, now we're going to install a bunch of dependencies, and I'm actually going to open up a terminal in VS Code, so that way, and I'll make this a little bit bigger too, and then I'll just make this big, and let's just move this over to my second monitor. Here we go. And then that way you can focus on the code here. So right here, what we're going to do is we're going to install some more dependencies. So the first one is we're going to install Hardhat. Remember I said that we're going to use this Hardhat development environment. So we're going to install that. This is the command for it, npm install --save dev -hardhat or space hardhat. And while that's installing, what's going to happen is we're going to be using this Hardhat to create a sample project. And this sample project will have some code in it. It'll have some Solidity code. We're going to review that together to understand what's going on. And then we'll be able to deploy that and test it and interact with it. So cool. We have installed Hardhat right here. We can actually run npx hardhat to see some beginner commands. So right here, you can see Hardhat outputs a bunch of different, let me rewind real quick. Let's rewind. I'm going to quit this to show you the command. So it's npx hardhat. If you don't have npx, this is Node Package Manager's execution command. So you can just Google, how to install npx. Make sure that you have that on your machine too. So anyways, moving on, npx hardhat, and you can see here it provides us with a bunch of different options. What we want to do is just create a basic sample project. Okay, you can also create an advanced sample project. You can also do one that uses TypeScript. We're not going to go into all of that. And then also, if you know what you're doing and you don't want to build already, you can keep it very bare bones and just create an empty configuration file. But for ours, we're going to go through with sample project. So we're going to do that. And you can just keep all the base settings. So I'm going to click yes. I'm going to want to add a git ignore. So yes here. Do you want to install the sample project's dependencies with npm? And you can see here that it lists Waffle, Ethereum Waffle, Chai, Hardhat Ethers, and Ethers. And remember I mentioned Ethers.js. This is the Ethers.js library. So let's just say yes to that, install everything, and that way it takes care of it for us. So that's going to take a second to install, but you can see it's already creating a bunch of these folders. So while we're waiting for that to install, let's take a tour here. In the contract folder, we have this greeter.sol. So greeter.sol is our smart contract, and .sol is basically the Solidity extension. Sorry, I had a brain fart. Greeter.sol is our smart contract, and the .sol means Solidity. That's like what the extension of the file means. And over here, you can see, we'll go line by line. This just tells us what is the license of your code. So what can other developers who are reading your code in open source, hosting spots like GitHub, what can they do with it? Unlicensed means basically there's no special license. People can like copy it however they want. It's part of public domain. This line right here, pragma solidity, and then this number, it tells us what Solidity version we want to use for this contract. So this caret means that anything that is greater than this 0.8 minor version is good to use. So the compiler could use 8.8.1, 0.8.10, whatever. And so all of that is basically like legal for this file. And then we are importing this Hardhat specific console log statement, console tool. So basically allows us in Hardhat when we're deploying locally to print debug statements. So that's kind of a nice thing. You could delete it later if you wanted to deploy to production. And then right here we have our contract. So you can see it's kind of like a class-based thing, but it's the keyword is contract, and then it's called greeter. And so in here we have a constructor, and then we have two functions. And we have one state variable that's called greeting. So the state variable is a string. It's private only to this contract, so only this contract can access it. And then we have our constructor. This constructor is called only on deployment. So it's only ever run one time, right when the smart contract is deployed to testnet or to the mainnet or whatever it is. And right here, you can see it requires an argument. It requires a greeting string, and then it stores that greeting string into the state variable of that smart contract. And then we have one read function and one write function. So this read function, it's a read function because it just says view and then returns a value. So it just simply returns the smart contract state variable of this greeting. And then this one's a write function. And we know it's a write function because it is actually changing a state variable in here. So it's very similar to the constructor where it takes in a greeting string and then it updates the greeting. So that is how our very simple smart contract works. And you can imagine as we are going to write our interaction script later on, what we will want to do is to call these functions and then see that transaction go through. We can actually see this in the Alchemy dashboard later. So this is what's been created. And you can see our installation also finished running. So that's nice. Awesome. So we've created our Hardhat project and then we've reviewed what the contract does. The next thing is we want to connect to the Polygon Mumbai blockchain network with Alchemy. So let me show you how to set that up here. We're going to go to Alchemy and I'm going to log out of my current account because I'm in another account here that I don't want to be logged into. All right. So I will log into that guy in tech account and it will take me to my dashboard. So if you don't already have an account, let me make that a little bigger so you can see, then you can just go to that website and sign up, go through the sign up flow. But you can see here, I already have an account, which is totally fine. And so I have a bunch of different applications. Now what I want to do is create a new app. This is what you're going to click on. So create a new app, and then we're going to call this Polygon Smart Contract. This is just the name that you want to call, your project. So you can call this whatever you want, but for the purposes of this, Polygon Smart Contract. And then our description maybe is like my very first Polygon Smart Contract. And then we'll go to chain, and you got to make sure that you pick Polygon. If you pick the wrong chain here, then our node service is not going to be able to connect you to the blockchain correctly. So pick Polygon. And then we're going to start with Polygon Mumbai. And the reason we want to do a test network, Mumbai as a test network, is because you can actually get fake test ether for free and then do what you would do on the real blockchain, but then it doesn't really cost you any money because you're getting the thing for free. And then once you're ready, basically you've tested it a bunch, you've tested it locally, you've tested it on testnets and staging, then you can switch over to Mainnet or create a new app on Alchemy, switch over to Mainnet, and then deploy through that. So we're going to start with Mumbai, and then I might be at my app limit. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. No, that should be right. Let's see. Polygon. I already have another app called Polygon Smart Contract. You can see it down here. So let's call this Polygon tutorial, and then first Polygon contract, and then switch this to Polygon, switch this to Mumbai, and then create app. Okay, great. And then you can see that it shows at the bottom of your list right here. And then you can click into this, and this is your dashboard for your Alchemy application. And the reason why this dashboard is important is that it shows you all the requests that are coming through. So you might have this one app that tracks your smart contract deployment, and it'll show you how many requests are coming through, how much gas you're paying to deploy that contract. Maybe you formed an invalid request for some reason, whatever. This is how you can debug what's going on with that process. And the important thing here is view key. So this is your very private, I'm showing this to you on the tutorial, but you shouldn't show other people this. This is your very private special API key. So this is your access to this app's node. And this is the HTTP URL, which includes the API key at the bottom, at the end right here. And then also we have the WebSocket URL. So make sure to keep track of this. We'll be using this a little bit later. And then now that we have our app, we're going to also create an Ethereum account with MetaMask. So you can see here, I already have MetaMask installed, but if you don't, then go to metamask.io and you can click download. You can install. It'll automatically detect, which browser you have. So these are the browsers that are supported. I highly recommend using one of these for development. So you can install and then go through the setup flow. I'm not going to go through it here. So once we have a MetaMask account, and you can see here, I have mine. Test account right there, boom. Then we're going to switch to the Polygon Mumbai test network. So switching networks is really important because by default in MetaMask, I'll show you right here on the computer screen. By default, you have, these different networks. So it'll probably be connected to Ethereum mainnet when you first install it. And so what you'll want to do is you'll want to go to settings, and then you go to networks. And then you can see here, I have a bunch of different networks, right? So I think by default, you don't even actually see the test networks either. So you might have to go to general, where is it? Advanced? I think it's advanced. And then you click show test networks. So if I turn off show test networks, you can see it actually doesn't even show the base test networks for the Ethereum mainnet, well, the Ethereum test networks. So if I turn this on, then you have more options. You can see Alchemy, or you can see Robson Test Network, Coven Test Network, RinkB, et cetera, et cetera. We're actually not going to be using any of those. We're going to either click the Add Network button here, or if you go back to Settings, you can click Network, Add Network. And what we want to do is add our Polygon Mumbai connection. This allows us to, using MetaMask, connect to the Alchemy, connect to the Polygon Mumbai test network. So let's call this Alchemy Mumbai. And then for our RPC URL, we're going to go back to Alchemy and click on this view key like I showed earlier, and go to HTTP, click copy, and then come back and paste that. So that is our connection to our Alchemy node. And then for chain ID, I believe it's 80001. And so you can see here that we are currently, it's already being used by Polygon Mumbai network. So I already have this set up, but then over here, we can call this Matic. And then our block explorer URL, we can keep as Polygon scan. So I believe there's a Mumbai Polygon scan. There we go. And then, so this should be mumbai.polygonscan.com. So it should look something like that. And then you click save. So you can see here, I have Alchemy Mumbai, and then I already set this up as a different one. So, have different ones. Anyways, I've already set this up, right? So once I've set this up, MetaMask under the hood is already doing certain queries to the blockchain. For example, it's checking, hey, what's the block ID? What number of a block are we on for the blockchain? And you can actually see this happening in Alchemy. So we'll go back here to the dashboard and refresh. And you can see we have a bunch of requests coming in. And this is MetaMask using the connection that we just set up with Alchemy to then check what's the balance, of this wallet. And then you can see that this response, it's zero for a bit for different wallets. But then boom, this one has some, and you get the idea. So that's kind of cool. We're seeing Alchemy under the hood. We have a MetaMask account set up. And so it's important to go through all of these configurations because then we can actually write the code that we want to write and deploy and do everything connected. Okay, cool. The next thing I want to do is actually going back to the browser. We do want to do one more thing, which is go to MumbaiFaucet.com. And this is to get your free test network Ether. So this is awesome. This was built by Alchemy as well. If you sign up or log in, then we give you more free Matic. So Matic is the currency on the Polygon network. If you don't sign in, you still get a good amount. You actually don't need to sign in for this tutorial, but you already have an Alchemy account by now. So just sign in and then paste in your test account, enter your wallet address, and then click send me Matic. So once it succeeds, you'll see this really cool pop-up, and it has like a different NFT that shows up every time. So it's kind of cool. But you'll also notice that in this your transactions row, it pops up a new transaction. So if you click on this, it actually goes to Mumbai Polygon scan. And then sometimes it takes a while to index. So that's what we're waiting for here. But once it indexes, then you'll also see on this block explorer that you have received Polygon Mumbai testnet Ether. And that another way to confirm is you open up your MetaMask. You should be able to see another, in this case, I claimed 5 Matic. So I should be able to see 21 Matic in just a moment. Cool. So you can see here, success, claimed 5 Matic. I'll make this bigger as well, claimed 5 Matic. And then it was a request that was sent to my wallet. So if I open my MetaMask, it should show the updated thing. Well, it doesn't. Why doesn't it? Let's check it out. Oh, okay, it already counted for it. So I had 11 previously, then now I have 16. So that's what this is. I got confused. Okay, great. So now that we have our test Ether, then what we want to do is, given our MetaMask account, that's like our identity, right? This address, this 0x7e6, 67af, blah, 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 5234. That's who I am in this blockchain world, right? And then we have our Alchemy connection to the blockchain. This is how we're going to be able to deploy to blockchains. We're going to combine both of these things and put it into our application, okay? So the way that we want to do that is go back here. Let me clear this. We are going to first install one more tool. It's called .env. So you want to do npm install .env -- save, okay? So click enter on that. And what this tool allows us to do is to create an environment variable file. It's going to hold all of our secrets, including our MetaMask private key, including our Alchemy API key, things like that. Basically, you don't want to add those secrets into your project because they're secrets. So if you end up committing this to GitHub and pushing it, it's free for everybody to see. It would be bad if the secrets were there. All right. So our .env got created. So we're going to create a new file here called .env. That's why this tool is called .env. It's because we created a .env file. Okay, so the next things we want to define are API URL and our MetaMask private key. So this is what it looks like. We have API URL, and then it should follow this format for the API URL, which it will. So let me just delete this so you can see it more clearly. And the next thing is the private key. So this should be your MetaMask private key. And one thing just to call out here is that it's really important to use this git ignore that includes .env. So that way, when I do git status, I never initted this, so let's git init. And then you can see when I do git status, it actually excludes the .env file because in our git ignore, we said, please don't track the .env file. Okay, cool. Anyways, in here, you're gonna paste your API URL. So the API URL is right here. Once again, view key, copy API URL. So I can show you this one. Awesome. And then I can actually show you my MetaMask password too, because I have a test account. Not this one. I actually like this test account, so I want to keep that one. I have ETH Dubai compromised. Someone took my Matic already. But actually, let's just go back to the faucet and request some here too. Oh, okay. It doesn't. I've already requested it. So, anyways, basically what it would look like. Let me show you the flow for this. So it should look like account details, and then right here, go to export private key. So basically, I think this. Okay, this is public key, so that's fine. Okay, anyways, export private key. I'm gonna type in my MetaMask password. I'm gonna move this down here. Okay, so MetaMask password. Cool. And then this is my private key. You can see here, warning, never disclose this key. Anyone in your private keys can steal your assets out of your account. So, you know, kind of bad to show this, but I don't really care about this account, so whatever. And then you would go into your .env file and then under private key, save that there. So we're going to be using these two variables in our project. We're going to be using the API URL variable and our private key variable, and I'll show you that in just a second. So this is what we're going to use here. I will actually try to send some ether to this. Let's switch my account back. So I will send to my ETH Dubai compromise. I feel like there's probably already a bot that is transferring stuff out, but let's just send one Matic over to see if anything happens. All right. And then let's go back here. Hopefully it lasts long enough that we can deploy. Okay, so, all right, where do we want to use it? Okay, so now we want to update our Hardhat configuration file. So this is going back into the Hardhat tool. You can see here that it has Hardhat waffle already required. It has this task definition. We don't care about this, so you can delete this if you want. And then there is this nice documentation from the Hardhat website on how to configure your project. So they define all the different parameters. I'll walk you through this so you don't have to look at it right now. And then this is what we want to do. So you can see this is telling the Hardhat that the compiler that we want to use in order to compile our contract should be Solidity version 0.8.4. And if we go back to greeter.sol, this matches pretty well because we had said anything that's above 0.8 is totally fine. So let's keep that one. The main thing that we want to add here is Mumbai. Or sorry, actually, it's a networks object. So networks, and then in here we want to define our networks. So we should define it as Mumbai. And then eventually, you know, when we want to deploy to Polygon mainnet, we might want to call it like Matic, you know, mainnet or something like that. But we'll get to that when we get to that. So for Mumbai, this is what it should look like. We want to copy over these fields. So right here. So under URL, we are going to be using API URL. And then under private key, we're going to be using, under accounts, we're going to have an array. And then we're going to do 0x and the private key. And it's important that you notice we haven't defined these variables yet. So that's where the .env tool comes in. So we're going to require .env. Remember how we installed .env in here? .env, npm install .env, right? So that's the tool. And then the other thing you want to do here is call config. And this will actually load the API, the environment variables. And then the actual line of code that loads the environment variables is this. So we're going to unpack it from the process.env object. So we'll have API URL and private key, and that should map to API URL and private key. Okay, good so far? Any questions? If you have any questions, also feel free to drop in the YouTube chat. We'll respond every now and then there, but remember, if you have questions, otherwise, totally recommend Ethereum Stack Exchange, then Twitter, and then Discord. Okay, cool. Back here, we have finished defining our network. And so the great thing here is that we are pretty much ready to go. Like we have a sample script. I should have talked about this earlier. We have a sample script, very simple, very simple. It loads our greeter contract, which is the Solidity contract we just went through. And then it deploys it. And then it waits for that deploy transaction to get mined and completed. And then we log in our console output the address where we deployed the greeter contract. And then it just exits. So super simple script. This is actually what we'll be running. So you can actually run this locally. You can run this on testnet, and then you can just switch your configuration on Hardhat and then deploy to mainnet as well using this exact same script. So this is what it'll look like. Before we call the deploy script, we'll actually do npx hardhat compile, and this will compile our smart contract. So it looks like hardhat latest is not, okay, I misspelled this. So this is why copy and pasting is actually really useful. So npx hardhat compile, and then we'll wait a second. It's going to use Solidity 0.8.4 to compile that, and you can see compiled 2 Solidity files successfully. This will actually create cache and artifacts, and then in artifacts, contracts, greeter.json, you can see this is the compiled ABI, which is like the interface of the contract. So it has the different constructor arguments, the different functions, the greeter function, the set greeting function, yada, yada, yada. So this is super useful if you want to build a front end later on, but we don't have to look at it right now. So we've compiled it, and then let me clear that error code there. The next thing we want to do is we want to deploy. So that is npx hardhat run scripts sample script.js. So we're running the script that we created in this folder. And then we are going to specifically select the network Mumbai that we had defined in our Hardhat configuration file here. You can see Mumbai. So we're going to run that. And this will use our MetaMask account that we loaded with our private key here. And it will also use our connection to the blockchain via the Alchemy API to actually deploy to the Mumbai test network. And you can see here, it took a few seconds, but we deployed the greeter contract to this address, 0x32b5, blah, 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 E3. And you can actually see what's going on in Alchemy. Let's exit that. When we refresh, once again, earlier we refreshed, we had the MetaMask transactions. Now you can see we have 524 requests, and they're all successful, super fast responses. Again, like a lot of get balances because MetaMask keeps doing that under the hood. But you can see here, if we go to the Explorer, we can actually see more of the requests we can do over the last hour. And then you can see there's like also get block number transactions. There's a lot of get balance transactions. But right here, get transaction receipt. So this is kind of like in Hardhat, the deploy script, when it's waiting for the deploy to finish, it will call this JSON RPC API. And then we eventually get a response on the contract that was deployed. So that includes the block hash, the block number, the contract address, who deployed it, all this stuff, which is great. And you can see here that we had indeed sent over 1 Matic, and it cost us about 0.015 Matic to deploy. So to the testnet. So that's pretty cool, right? And this was the send raw transaction. This was actually the transaction in hex encoded that actually deployed the smart contract. And then if we go over here, this is not the address I want to check. I want to check the ETH Dubai compromised. So if we go here and paste that in, you can see there's 2 transactions here. There was a transfer about 6 minutes ago, and then we created a contract just now. And this is the contract we created. So you can already pat yourself on the back a little bit. You deploy your first smart contract. But now we want to do something more interesting, which is now that it lives out there on the blockchain, it's public, anyone, including you right now watching this video, you can actually go to this address. Let's go to this contract creation, to this contract address, and you can interact with my smart contract because it's public, and that's one of the powers of the blockchain. So let me show you how you can do that. Okay, let's go right here. We are actually going to copy this contract address into our environment variable because this is something that we'll be wanting to reference later. You don't have to do it in the environment folder. I just do it here just for convenience so that you can load it in all the different places, but you could hard copy this everywhere if you want. There's like no security implications of using your contract address. It's already public anyways. But anyways, I just put it there for convenience. And then we're going to create a new script. So right now this is sample script. It honestly should have been called like deploy script or something like that, but you know, whatever, we're gonna keep it that way. We're gonna create a new script. So I clicked in the script folder, I created a new file called greet.js. And this greet.js file, we can actually copy a lot of the base here. So I'm just going to the sample script, and then we're going to copy this over. We can delete a lot of these comments, totally unnecessary. We do not need to copy that. And then, oh, I actually have it right here. So let me just copy this in. We are going to get the ABI. So right here, contract JSON. We're going to go into the artifacts folder, like I showed you earlier, going into the contracts subfolder, and then greeter.sol/greeter.json. So we're going to load this contract JSON using a require statement. Okay, so this thing that I showed you earlier, we're going to load that in here. And then the next thing we're going to do is we want to get the contract ABI from the contract JSON. So that's what this looks like. I have a comment in here. The ABI is very important. It's the interface to your contract, including the different variable or available functions that are exposed for other contracts, accounts, etc. to call. So contract JSON.ABI is the ABI. It's the application binary interface. So we are going to define that variable. And then in here, we're going to load our stuff. We're going to be loading our Alchemy connection. We're going to be loading our wallet. And then we're also going to be loading our contract instance that's been deployed to the Polygon Mumbai network. So this is what that looks like. Let me copy this in. I'm just going to replace all of this stuff inside the main function. So delete all that, and then I'm going to copy this in. And then you can see here that we are using the Alchemy API key. And so Alchemy API key, we actually haven't defined yet. So we should go back to our M folder. Oh, let's just make this next to each other. Okay, go back here. And then we're going to do Alchemy API key. And Alchemy API key is basically the URL that we had used in the API URL here, but just that last string. So we're going to copy this over here, and that's Alchemy API key. And we're loading that in here, and then using specifically the Matic Mumbai key in the Ethers providers. So this is part of Ethers.js. And if you wanted to see more documentation on Ethers.js, you can go to docs.ethers.js.io. Oh, it's docs, yeah, docs.ethers.io/v5. And then you can find provider. We're going to do a search for provider. And then the one that we are using is Alchemy provider. So let's go back. That's not the right one. Probably faster to look at Alchemy. Okay, provider API keys, Alchemy, and then, yeah. Oh, these are API keys. Where is the documentation for Alchemy? Alchemy provider. There we go. So this is basically ethers.providers.alchemy provider, and then here are all the different networks. So we're using Matic Mum because that is the Polygon Mumbai testnet. So I'll drop a link to this documentation as well. That's Matic Mum, Ethers providers, Alchemy provider. And then the other thing we're setting up is user wallet. So again, we're loading our MetaMask private key so that we can have our MetaMask wallet. We're using the Alchemy provider here to make sure that when we are issuing transactions from our wallet inside the script, we're going through the Alchemy connection as well. And this makes sure that your code can actually be deployed faster. You get your dedicated resources from Alchemy, so it's pretty special. And so once we've set up this user wallet instance, then we put it all together by loading this greeter contract. So hre.ethers.contract, and then you have our contract address that we're loading from our environment file as well, and our ABI, and then our user wallet. Okay. So now that we have our greeter, then we can interact with the greeter, right? And by interacting with the greeter contract, what I mean is that you can actually call functions on greeter. So you can actually do greeting, I think is the function called. And then you can also do greeter.set greeting, right? That's what we had here, greet and set greeting. Yeah. So greet will return, our greeting. And so it depends on what we deploy this with, right? And in our sample script, we had deployed this with hello Hardhat. So the very, 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 very first time that we call this new script, it should return hello Hardhat. I think there's an exclamation mark. And then you can set this greeting. And so in order to set the greeting, you want to say something here, right? So hello at that guy in tech. And that is where you can, it's not going to return anything, but it's going to update the blockchain state on the smart contract. And the next time you call set greeting, or sorry, the next time you call greeter.greeting, it's going to return the new string. So pretty simple. But what we're going to do is we're going to send 2 transactions to see this in play. And there's basically some syntax here on waiting for asynchronous function calls. So we have await and then we are basically setting the greeting. So we're going to say Web3 is not going to make it. And then we're going to wait for that. So that we're going to get that transaction. We're going to make sure that transaction actually gets mined. And then we are going to console log the first statement, which is Web3 is not going to make it. Then we're going to do that exact same thing, but change the greeting one more time with Web3 is awesome. And then wait. And then the after statement will be Web3 is awesome. So yeah, we're going to save that. Make sure your file is saved. And then we can run the exact same thing. So npx hardhat run scripts. But this time, instead of sample script, we're going to run greet.js and then network Mumbai. And then again, we'll have to wait a few seconds because it's actually trying to get a connection and issue the transaction and send it. And then, we have actually 2 transactions going on, and then we're going to log everything. So you can see here, the first log statement already came out. It's called before, and it says Web3 is not going to make it, just like we had predicted. And then we're waiting for that second transaction to go through, and now it's done, which is Web3 is awesome. Yeah. So now we have both of those. And then if we go back to Alchemy, you can actually see, once again, all the transactions coming through. So let's go back to last hour, first page, refresh this. And then you can see this was sent just now. So we have our transaction receipt on that final transaction. That's that transaction receipt. And then you can see MetaMask going wild. And then we have our send raw transaction. So this was the send transaction for one of them. So you can see how fast it took and everything like that. Cool. And then in Mempool, I want to show this off as well. Let's filter this down all the way to our Polygon tutorial app. That's the one we've been using. So we've issued 4 transactions so far on the Mumbai test network. And these are those transactions. We've done the very first one where we deployed the contract. And then we did one where, I actually don't remember what this one was. Maybe this was the deploy. This one was using MetaMask to actually get transfer some Matic over from one account to another account. This one deployed the contract. And then these 2 are the ones that are interacting with our smart contract. So we set our first value and then we set our second value. And so you can see the nonces too to line up with that. This one was actually from the other wallet where I had already sent 18 previous transactions. So this was the 19th transaction. And then over here, we switched over to our very new wallet and it started over from nonce 0, nonce 1, nonce 2. So yeah, this is pretty useful too, because right now these show status as mined. In case in the future you have a transaction that's going on for a really long time, you don't know why, you can go over here, you can switch over to the pending tab and you'll be able to see that transaction. And then when you click into it, you'll actually see details about that transaction. So the nonce, the block number, how much gas you had submitted with this transaction. Sometimes when you're submitting transactions with Ethers.js or with some kind of library, it does some calculation to try and estimate what the best gas is, but that's not always the best gas. Or MetaMask might be having issues doing that estimation as well. They do some of that estimation built into the wallet. So if they're not doing that correctly, then maybe your transaction won't go through for a while. So you can debug that by coming here, going to the mempool and seeing what Alchemy sees. And if it's too low, then we actually have another video to help you debug that. I'll link that below too. Anyways, back to our contract here. We're getting to the end. We've already deployed, we've interacted. This is super exciting. So now the question is, how do we deploy to Mainnet? This is something that I actually don't show in the documentation tutorial right away, but it's actually super, super duper simple. So we just have to go back to our Hardhat configuration file. So this is hardhat.config.js. And you notice here, remember that we set up our Mumbai network. All we have to do is add another network called Matic. You can call it whatever you want, but I'm just going to call it Matic, and that's what I refer to as Polygon Mainnet. So for our URL, you would want to set up a new Alchemy URL, a new Alchemy app. So you would go here and then create, an app let's just go to my dashboard and see if I have one already. I do. So we have Polygon mainnet, and then I would just use this key. So I would copy this key. Ooh, excuse me. We would call this maybe Matic URL. And then I would want to make sure that I import that Matic URL. And in the environment variable, I would put my Matic URL. And then I would copy in that Matic URL. And then the other thing that I want to do also is the accounts. So I need to make sure that I have accounts that I can use to deploy that have real Matic, real production mainnet Matic. And so in your case, if it's true that your test account is the same as your production account, you can just use that very same private key that you have set up. But for me, for good hygiene, I actually do all my testing with a certain set of accounts. And then when I'm really serious about deploying, then I load up my main account. But for you, you can keep it all in the same, whatever, depends on how you want to do it. So then you just do that, right? And then when you're ready, you go npx hardhat. And I'm not going to actually run this because I don't have any money. We can try it, but I think it's going to fail. Scripts / sample script, which I should really rename to deploy. But instead of Mumbai for the network, this time we're going to use Matic. And you can watch, if I run this, it will actually fail because, let's see, what does it say here? Cannot read properties of null, send transaction. What is that? Line. It doesn't even, this error message is really bad. But I'll tell you right now, it's because I don't have Ether, I'm pretty sure. So anyways, that's what you have to do. Set it up, get your Ether, and then, yeah. Let me make sure that I have this saved. Let me make sure I have this saved. I feel like this is wrong. Read properties of null, send transaction. Yeah, okay. It typed out the hi, and then it was trying to deploy it, but it couldn't deploy it. So these error messages are not the best, and you can tell these are coming from Ethers. So I feel like there's something that I would want to upgrade Ethers for, to have a better error message. But anyways, once you have Ether, it should work just like we did earlier for our testnet deploy. And so yeah, after that, then you're good to go. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching this. Hopefully this was useful. I tried to make sure that I covered everything, make this pretty comprehensive, but I know it's pretty beginner, so I'm sure there's a lot more that you want to learn. Make sure that you subscribe to this channel because I'm going to be putting out so many different tutorials, and drop comments in this YouTube video to let me know what you want to learn next. That really helps me prioritize future content. And then of course, Ethereum Stack Exchange, Alchemy Platform, Twitter, that guy in tech is me on Twitter. And then join our Discord server to build with the rest of the Alchemy community. So super excited to have you here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.